Hi, everyone. I am Lorianne. I am that gal. I am from Milton, Ontario, Canada, and I am with.
I am that guy. My name is Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas, and we would like to welcome you to our Lift Your Story podcast.
So in this episode, we're very pleased to have Antione Tomlin. He's a life coach and he has got a perspective on gender and race. And there's a lot more that we're going to be discussing today. So thank you so much for being here, Antoine.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm excited to be here with you all.
Great. So we understand you're working on your Ph.D.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I am a Ph.D. candidate at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and I am in the final semesters of finishing my Ph.D. in language, literacy, and culture. And in my program, we call it LLC. And so LLC has been great. It's an interdisciplinary program. And so it allowed me to take different disciplines and to figure out what it is that I wanted to study, and then to create a coursework that would help me to be able to get to where I wanted to be. So I'm excited about being able to share about the LLC program at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. My mentors, Dr. Keisha Allen and Dr. Christine Mallinson, have been an amazing duo. And, I'm excited to be finished. So coming up very soon, that will be finished. The dissertation focuses on Black male teachers in Baltimore.
Okay. So does Baltimore have a real issue as far as education?
Good question. I think that the United States has a real issue of education.
I agree.
Baltimore, yeah. And Baltimore, absolutely. We see so many communities, especially marginalized communities, who do not get the support that they need. And when we talk about equity, diversity, and inclusion, right, I think the landscape for a long time has focused on equality, which, yes, we need equality and we also need equity. Those are two different things. So how do we make sure that all students get what they need? And in Baltimore, we are trying to make sure that that happens, but I think my research for my dissertation will shed some light on what else we need to do in terms of the folks who are supporting those students in Baltimore, right? So those Black male teachers, because there's also an equity issue there.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
So not to get off too far off tangent, but let me just ask you your opinion. If Kim Klacik would have got in office, would that have helped you?
I'm not sure. I love to be able to give folks an opportunity to present what it is that they need to present, right? So I don't want to jump the gun and say a yes or a no, but I think at the same time, we have to make sure that we broaden our perspectives, right? So as a life coach, it's all about the perspectives. Oftentimes folks go into it with this very narrow-minded kind of position, and it's about how do we as humans broaden our perspective, right? So we see it one way, but that's just our perspective from our lived experience. And so someone else may see it a different way from their lived experience. And if we never take the chance to at least see what's the 2% truth, right? There's a little bit of truth in every perspective, even if it doesn't relate to us. And so if we don't take that time to see, well, what is the 2% truth that rings true for this individual, I automatically kind of block it out. And then that's not where we want to be as humans, right? And so I think that there's an opportunity to look at what's the 2% truth and how do we move forward in a way that we at least acknowledge the differences that we have.
So
that's interesting.
Go ahead, Lorianne.
I was gonna say, that's interesting because I say, even when people lie, there's truth in it, and truth, there are lies. And so you have to really, like you said, be able to take out, either, again, whether it's a lie or a truth, where is the absolute? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool.
So in the schools there in Baltimore, what is are kids graduating from high school? I mean, percentage wise, is it increasing that they're graduating or decreasing?
So, Roy, I don't know if I can speak to exact numbers, but I will speak to what my observation is. Okay. And I think that, yes, we still see that students are graduating from high school. However, I have never been a K through 12 teacher, so I want to make sure that I say that. I've never been a K through 12 teacher. I started as a professor early on. So I was 21 when I went into education, teaching courses at the college level, and I never had a desire to teach in K through 12. So I can only speak from my experience of what I see on the back end, right? So those students who graduate and who happen to say, yes, I'm going to college, whether it's community college or a four-year institution, what I find is many students that I've seen from Baltimore are not prepared. And that's just the sad truth. It's the chilling truth of what it is. They're not prepared. And, you know, I'm a professor of English, right? And so all students have to take English to get a college degree. And I also teach developmental English. And many of the students who are from Baltimore, not all, so I don't want to make a blanket statement, but many of the students who are from Baltimore, especially Baltimore City, they end up in my developmental English course. And I teach them some of the fundamentals, and they oftentimes say, I've never learned this. And I think that that is a testament to what the teachers are facing, right? Those teachers, they are held to a standard. They have to make sure that students pass a high school standard assessment. They have to make sure that they are managing behavior. And so how then do we put all of the stress on those teachers to get everything done, right? And I don't think it's fair, but I think that, you know, there's a lot of factors that go into how students get to the community college, especially where I am, and they don't feel like they're prepared. And I see it in their work, right? And so we work hard for 15 weeks to make sure that they get up to where they need to be in order to move to the next English course.
Yeah.
This is interesting. I went to, in Canada, of course, we go to grade 12, but I also lived in Quebec, which is where I went from Ontario to Quebec, I lost a grade. Thank goodness I'd already put myself up one, so I'm still in the same grade. But point is we go to grade 11 in Quebec. Then what they do is they kind of put you, which I call a junior college. It's a college. You do 3 years, you get your college diploma, but everyone's got to go in there for 2 years. There's a couple of things that you learn. First of all, you catch up on whatever high school doesn't give you as far as learning. But the other thing too is it gives a lot that, like, it's part of the system, so you don't have to pay into it, unlike universities, right? So it's great because you are accountable for going to class. You don't have those teachers telling you have to be there or taking, the attendance or anything. And I'll tell you, the first year was really hard. I sat in that cafeteria playing cards with my girlfriends and my guy friends, and we're sitting there going, freedom. And they find that a lot of university and college people who go out of that, right, that one of the things is hard is that self-discipline. And a lot of people actually don't end up finishing their first year of university because of that lack of discipline. And so this has been a really good, I think that system is really, really good because even if you failed that first year, you have the ability to make it up, which is what I did. But in university, you fail, you lose that money. It's gone.
Yeah. And I think we need to do a better job with that, right? Like, we don't give students oftentimes the second chance, right? Like, it's all or nothing. When you step foot on that campus, when you step foot and you sit in that course, it's all or nothing. You're paying your money and you have to make sure that you make it work. And so that's why my approach to my students, regardless of if they are developmental students or they are, graduate students, my approach is always to make sure that I am looking at from an equity-based lens to make sure that all of my students, regardless of what you look like, get what you need, right? Because that is how we ensure that students are supported. That is how we ensure that graduation rates are increased. That is how we ensure that retention rates are increased. We need to make sure that we're supporting all students, regardless of what they look like, to meet their goals.
It's interesting. You were talking about, teachers. Honestly, I would hate to be a teacher in today's schools. I mean, because when I was in school, teachers were respected. I mean, they were respected, period. It's not that, I don't think it's that way now, but here in Texas, you're talking about, teachers got so much to do. They've got to meet all this. And here it's like, hey, I've got to meet what the state says. If Bob can't read, not my problem. I can't fail him. Push him on. And so they're graduating, like you say, they're graduating from high school. They got a diploma. If you ask what a noun is, they couldn't tell you. you know, and they go to college and they don't have the stuff the basics they should have gotten. And they're in there and it's just shoved. Here it is. Take it or leave it. Good luck. Wish you all the best. You know, and you know, I mean, I'll have to think back because I always liked English, but you know, I can remember diagramming a sentence and thinking, how am I ever going to use this when I get grown? Because since I was grown, I never diagrammed a sentence. But I know what the stuff is. You know, but I mean, but still, education needs a total reform in the United States, in my opinion, total reform. And
absolutely.
I think if you don't have the skills in the first grade that you're supposed to have, then you need to repeat the first grade until you get them. Instead of just shoving you through, people as seniors in high school can't read, they can't spell, they can't add or subtract, and they graduate from high school and they go out in the workforce. There's no sympathy.
Absolutely. You know, and Roy, what comes to mind when you tell me that, and we are having this conversation, I read something a few years ago, and I read that based on fourth grade, if I'm not mistaken, and it may be even earlier, but I read that the states, they look at the number of prison cells that they need based on fourth grade reading levels. Right. And so if by the time you're in fourth grade, you are not on grade level with reading, they say that you are more likely to end up in prison. And so they automatically create a cell for you. Right. So yes, this is in the United States. And based on that, we see that many folks, especially Black and brown folks, are the ones who are not on reading level. And so a cell is created for them in prison because by the fourth grade, right, they are not on level. And so it's already been determined that they're not going to make anything of themselves or their life. And so a cell is created for them.
Now that wow. You know, that, I mean, can you imagine going to a fourth grader at the end of his fourth grade, said, read this or whatever, and they have a struggle. You go, well, you know, hey, you're going to be in jail time you grow up. So
yes. And that's exactly what was happening.
I mean, if you talk about killing the spirit of somebody, why try? Why bother?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I work so hard, right? To be able to say that I'm going to take an approach that is going to be an equitable approach for everyone, but especially, right, my research focuses on Black male teachers. When I was in graduate school working on my master's, my research focused on Black male students because that is a population that also needs some special attention, right? And as a professor, I would never say that I don't care about all of my students because I absolutely do. And in my own research, I know that there are certain populations that need a little more attention in order to be able to be successful, right? And so my personal research interests focus on a certain thing, but my professional experience focuses on all students, right? So I want to also make sure that I note that. And we need to think about how we, again, be able to support all students and move forward, especially because we know that certain populations are at a deficit.
Would you, from your experience, would you say that a lot of people, another struggle they have is not being in the family dynamic, the family unit? Broken home.
I think that that's a part of it. And I think that we have to think about how we operationally define family unit, right? And so traditionally, the family unit has been mom, dad, brother, sister. And I think that for certain populations, the family unit looks different, right? And so, for instance, for me, yes, I have my immediate family, my grandmother and my family member who hasn't passed away. And so I have that structure. But I think that depending on the population and the individual, right? So it's not just a certain population blanket statement, but depending on that individual, that family unit looks different because the family unit may be close friends from college. The family unit may be close friends from high school. The family unit may be significant other at that point, but not married, right? And so I think that we have to intentionally, operationally define what it means to have a family unit. And from that, So whatever that family unit looks like to individuals, I think absolutely you need that system, because if not, you don't have the supports that you need in order to be successful. And then that shows, right? If you don't have those supports, then you're less likely to be successful because you're battling with a whole bunch of things that you cannot release.
You know, it's interesting because we've had people on here, and nowadays there's a lot of grandparents raising grandkids. And what's really strikes me is most of the people that have been raised by the grandmother or the grandparents, they seem to excel more than not, because they got that attention, they got the support, you know, and and everybody always says, well, my grandmother, she was always there for me. My grandmother encouraged me. My grandmother was always in my corner. You know what I mean? So, and I think with so many grandparents raising their grandkids, that is really telling, in my opinion.
Absolutely, well, I agree. Yeah, I'm sorry, Lorianne.
I was just going to say, in a sense, too, like a grandmother's already gone through the first, you know, difficulties, because you don't have a book to say how to do it. By the time you brought up your children, you know, you go, wow, I've made all those mistakes. Now I know what not to do. And you're right, too, because I have an ex-boyfriend, just wonderful. We're still really good friends, but he was brought up by his grandmother. His manners were, I couldn't believe it. I mean, he was in the automotive industry, yet, you know, I've never seen a man eat so intricately in my entire life, because he was brought up by his grandmother. Cleaned the house, was, I mean, I'm sitting there looking at him and he looks gruff and everything, but he's the most mannered person I have ever met. But I was also curious too, because we're talking about education and such, but you were also saying you're a life coach. Where exactly does that fit into the life coaching? Because we were talking earlier, as far as our list of guests, and a lot of them are life coaches. I said every individual has a specific target that they're going after. Can you tell us a little bit more about who is your, what did they say? I don't want to use it. Your specific group of people. There's a word that, that Roy knows I don't like to use all the time. Who's your avatar? Okay, it's not an avatar, it's a real person, okay? Who are the real people you want to attract or to help? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So we use a skill in coaching, it's called bottom line. So I'm going to get to the essence of this, because I want to give you a little background and then be able to lead into the question that you asked. I did my life coach certification at Anne Arundel Community College. We have a program that is ICF certified. And so if you are wanting to be certified with the ICF, which is our governing body for accreditation, we absolutely are hitting the mark there. And so Jen Lara is one of the co-founders of that program. She still teaches in the program. And I loved the program so much when I went through, and it's called engagement coaching. So I went through the program. I took all of the courses to graduate from the program. I did my hours and my mentoring to be certified with ICF. And then I said, you know what? I want to teach in this program. And so Jen Lara and the education chair, Dr. Karen Phelan, were like, yes, absolutely do it. So I was already a full-time professor at AACC is the acronym. And they said, yes, let's do it. So I'm now also co-leading the program to train new life coaches. And, you know, for our program, we call them life and engagement coaches. And so that brings me to where I am right now. And by the way, we're always accepting folks, and it's virtual. So you can be from all around the world, right? And it's experience-based learning. So it's not that you're going to read a textbook and you're going to take a test. No. We demonstrate the skills for you, and then you do it, right? And so that's the best way that we believe to train life coaches to be awesome engagement coaches. And that's the way I learn. And so our program, again, is engagement coaching. And so I do coin myself to be a life and engagement coach. And so what that means is I want to be there to support you and to help you live the most fulfilled and engaged life possible. So yes, we can coach around different topics. And yes, I have coached on more topics than others. However, whatever it is that you need to be in this world to show up more engaged, to feel more fulfilled in your life, is what we will work on in our sessions. And so I'm glad you asked, because yes, we deal with all different types of topics, but it really is about how do you show up as a human being, right? And you be in this world and you decide how you want to be the most fulfilled and engaged. And so that's what our program will teach you. That's what I will help you through if you decide that you want to take me on as a life and engagement coach, because it really is about how we show up as our best selves, the best version of ourselves. And I truly believe that coaching will help all humans to do that, right? You don't have to go to coaching because you have a problem. Maybe you just want to be a little more engaged. You want to explore some things that you haven't explored before, no matter how young, how old. I think we all. And as a life coach, I also have a life coach, right? So I truly believe in it. And I also have a life coach because I know that I'm not perfect.
I really love the engagement part. You know, not just life, but engagement. Because I mean, really, that's what everything's really about, engaging with each other.
Yes,
you know,
yes,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
To me, that's perfect. I mean, that's the perfect thing, engagement coach. And I haven't heard that before. Have you, Lorianne?
I haven't either, no.
No.
Actually, I was asked today on one of the coaching groups, they said, how do you define coaching? And I said, well, it's guiding, not telling. I mean, you want to guide first. I can't, you know, you're not going to say, hey, here's a program, you do this program, because everybody is so different. So that's why when, you know, Roy and I were talking about the GAL program, which is called Get a Life. That's why it's I Am That Gal, Get a Life. Anyway, but that was the whole purpose of it. You really need to design a program for that person because everybody is so different. You can't just plug them into one. I mean, that's my concept of coaching is you can't just have one set. So engaging is very important. Exactly, Roy, what you're saying, because when you engage with that person and you're coaching with them, then you know what it is and where they need to be guided.
If you and I signed up together, it wouldn't be the same, right? You know, what would work for me may not work for you, and vice versa. You know, so but I, you know, I've heard of thousands of life coaches, but this is the first engagement coach. So that's to me, that is really something special, I would think.
Yeah, it sets us apart, you know, and I think that all of us want to be engaged. And to your point, Lorianne, I have a very kind of interesting way of describing, because I also break it out into these different professions, right? So coaching is very different from mentorship. And coaching is very different from therapy, and coaching is very different from counseling. And we do not ever say that we're in place to replace any of those, because every human being can have all of those folks on the team, right? And so I never go into it saying that coaching is going to solve all your problems. However, I do have a very interesting and distinct way of distinguishing what coaching does versus what all the others do. And you can have all of those members on the team at the same time, right? You can have a coach and a mentor and a therapist all at the same time, because we do very different things, right? So while sometimes, right, the skills, the techniques may be similar, we also have different missions and goals that are based on, like you both said, the individual, right? It's about the individual and how you are in service to your client based on what skills you bring to that client.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, so in working with the students, you know, are you, besides a teacher, are you also mentoring some of these kids?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I also make it a point to distinguish, right? There are times of where I show up coach-like. That doesn't mean that we're having a coaching session. That means that I'm using those skills that I learned, right, to ask you some of those powerful questions to get you to thinking, but it's not a coaching session, right? Whenever I'm coaching, I always ask, do I have permission to coach you, so that you know that we're getting ready to have a coaching session? Right. And so when I'm showing up in a mentor space, I let that be known, right? As your mentor, yes, I'm absolutely going to tell you right from wrong. I'm going to tell you what it is that my advice is in this situation. And I'm going to be very direct and straightforward with you, right? So no, I'm not always going to ask coaching questions. I'm going to tell you, you have to get your mess together. And this is how we get on the track to do it. So I definitely build that rapport with my students, because I need to be able to speak quite frankly, direct to my students when they need to hear it directly, right? I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm going to say, listen, this is where we are, and we need to move from here to here. How do we make it happen, right? That's a different interaction than with a coaching session. Right?
Well, that's what I was thinking too, because I remember I was, is there an echo somewhere, or is that me?
No, it went just
okay.
just for
I remember that I was, I used to help businesses start their own business. And then we used to always tell them, get about 3 or 4 mentors. The mentors are the ones that have been through pretty well what you've done. They also have the expertise to give, like you said, tell them, saying, hey, you know what, done that, didn't work, wouldn't. So it's more of an experiential. The mentors are more experiential. The coaches, like you said, are more engaging. You know, I'm not going to say, hey, I've done that and it didn't work. You're going to say, well, maybe, you know. So I think it's a little bit of a softer go. A mentor, though, yeah, they've gone through it. And some of these mentors that, you know, some of my clients had, they were right up there, like VPs and, you know, huge entrepreneurs. Yeah, they know what they're talking about. So listen, and that's really what's important when it comes to a mentor. That's how I see the difference. You know, you're talking to the people been there, the wise people. Those are your mentors. Your coaches are there to engage with you. And I love that. That's wonderful.
Yes, absolutely.
You're just wonderful.
Absolutely.
Very fun to talk to. I'm learning so much here too.
Well, yeah.
That grade 4 thing really blew me away though. You know, my goodness. Thank goodness that my poor daughter, she's brilliant now. And she's going to engineering. She's getting her engineering degree. She also has her psychology degree from university. But I mean, in grade 4, they would have started putting this out. She struggled through school. It wasn't her intelligence that was the issue. It was, again, in school, there's one way of teaching everyone. She would have been taught better in a different area, in a different way. Plus, she went to French school, so that was a little bit tough for her. But yeah, they would have created a self for her right there. And look at her now. So it's like you said, Roy, you take away that, you know,
but
we still encouraged her even when she was struggling.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would like to go back to what you were saying earlier, and I hope I'm correct. You said that these students come into like a 13-week program. Basically, is it like a remedial, trying to get them, okay, you don't have the skills. I'm going to help you through the 13 weeks to get to where you need to be so you can be successful. Is that correct? So
yes. So, and it's usually, well, it depends. The courses are 13 or 15 weeks, but yes, absolutely.
So conceptually, that's what you do. So tell me, when these kids first start and when they finish, what's the transition you see?
You know, I think that the transition is major for many students. However, I always try to make sure that students know what they're getting themselves into, because oftentimes they don't, right? And so what I mean by that is it's tough. It is absolutely tough. And I always say I teach every level of English from developmental to literature, right? And so, yes, I teach, you know, the developmental courses. I teach the transition intro composition courses, which is typically like 101, 102, right? However, I tell my students who are in those developmental courses, you may not have me next semester. So while you like my approach, it is my position to make sure that you get everything you need in order to be successful with whoever else you run into, right? And so when you go to that next professor who is expecting that you know all of these things, yes, you started in a developmental course where you needed to just refresh your skills a little bit. However, I'm going to make sure at the end of this 13 or 15 weeks, you have it to where you can go in and you know all that you need to know to be successful. You don't feel like you are behind. You don't feel like you're at a deficit. And so, you know, I see major transitions. But what I'll say, Roy, is for the students who really put in the effort, right? So students come to college for all different reasons, and they, from their lived experiences, they have all obstacles that maybe get in the way of them completing, or maybe get in the way of them showing up as 100% their best self in that semester. And so unfortunately, there are many students who just have life going on and they cannot do everything in that moment, right? So some students don't make it the first time because they have life going on. But the ones who say, you know what, I'm going to do it, I'm up for the challenge, they end up on the other side, and it's almost as if they have never taken a developmental course. They're so up to speed, they're ready to go, they're excited, and they don't let it get them down, right? They're not like, oh man, I had to take a developmental class. This means X, Y, Z, fill in the blank. They're like, you know what? I took that course, I'm grateful, and now I'm ready to take on another challenge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's got to be nice when those people complete that, and they come up to you and go, oh man, I thank you so much. I can't believe I got here. I didn't think I could do it. You know, you helped me. I'm there. You know, I mean, that's got to be amazing for you to get that feedback, because you're very passionate about what you do. There's no doubt about that. You're very passionate, and you know your purpose. You found your purpose. You know.
Oh yeah.
And you're definitely creating your legacy.
Yeah, thank you. It's one of the most amazing things. I'm glad that you brought that up. I absolutely love it. I get to see the students the next semester, even if they're not in my class, and they're like, you know what? Like, I got an A on my paper, and I'm like, yes, you deserve it because you put in the work. And you know, one of my favorite parts of the academic year is actually the commencement ceremony. So at graduation, when I see my students who maybe started in developmental and they finally graduated, they get to walk across the stage. I get to meet all of the families, right? They're so proud. Those are some of the best moments. So on campus, when I see students and they're like, oh, thank you so much, you really helped. And then when I get to see them meet a milestone and they're excited about going out into the workforce or going to their next institution, it's amazing. And so I couldn't ask for a better opportunity and a better position to be in, to be able to support, you know, students who really want to meet their goals and who are trying very hard every day to get to whatever that goal is.
So how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So by email is the best way. I think I live on my email, and especially in these virtual times, right? I try to make sure that I am disconnecting and making sure that I do self-care. I think that's important. And I think that in these virtual times, it's also equally as important to find a balance, but to make sure that you are still supporting and responsive to those who need you. And so email is perfect. My email is just my first name and last name. So Antione, Tomlin is the last name, TOMLIN@gmail.com. And that's my personal email. I like to do personal because I have a lot of other projects going right now. I'm publishing a few books right now around student affairs practitioners and around doctoral students who are finishing their degrees. And so, you know, the personal email is best. That's also the way to connect me if you want to talk more life coach, right? So even if you're like, I'm looking for a mentor coach, or I'm looking for an actual life coach, or I just want to talk about what the process is like, I'm always willing and open to talking about student success, about life coaching, about life in general, and how we all just show up as our best selves in this life.
Yeah, well,
thank you so much.
We would like for you to come back maybe like in 6 months, and then kind of catch up and see what's been going on. And you know, I don't know what stage your books are in, but maybe you finished a book and you can talk about that too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They are coming in quick. So I'm excited. I'm hoping that in the summertime, both of them will be finished and on the market. And hopefully I'll also be finished this dissertation. So I'll be finished with a doctorate degree. So I'm excited, and I would love to come back and share some insight on, you know, what has happened in the next few months.
We would
Beautiful.
definitely
Thank you so much.
This has been very interesting and fun for me. I've really enjoyed meeting you.
Absolutely.
Me too.
Absolutely. Same here. Same here.
It's awesome. So we'd like to thank you for coming on. I mean, it was really a pleasure to meet you. It really was.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Absolutely. It was an amazing experience.
And you're doing some awesome work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very proud of yourself for that, for what you do, because you're making a difference.
Thank you.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again.
Okay.
All right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. Have
Take
fun.
care.
Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.
See ya. Thanks.
Bye.